I had a happy childhood until I was about 10 years old. You know, the childhood where you're outside all day and you may end up going home when the street lamps come on. At age 10, my mom got remarried to my stepfather, who brought along a stepbrother into the relationship. And for a couple of years, we had fun. It was kind of cool having a brother, and we played and we had fun. But then around age 12, my brother started to become very involved with his sexuality. And in that involvement, he did molest me. And I found out years later that he'd been molested as well by his mother. So that there was a reason for that. During the around age 12, my parents got involved in a church. We went to a church, but it wasn't really what I would call a Christian church. It was more of a social club. And so my parents would have friends over on the weekends and they would drink. And with anything else, alcohol causes a lot of changes in behavior. And so at that point, I began to notice that my parents became physically abusive with us and emotionally abusive. And so it was a hard time with my parents. The closest that I had with my mom was severed. And at that time, with my brother molesting me, I, of course, couldn't tell because he threatened to hurt my mom or said that she wouldn't believe me. And he decided that he could make some money off this whole endeavor and ended up having his friends come in and they would also have sex with me. And he made money off of them and he'd pay me off with cigarettes, so that was okay. And during that time, of course, I have the feelings of guilt and uncleanness and unworthiness and hatred towards my brother, hatred for myself because I was letting this happen. And so we ended up, I started drinking because alcohol was there in the house. And my parents were saying things like, well, we'd rather have you drink at the house than to go to a party. So I became a teenage alcoholic during this time. Around age 14, my brother just suddenly left. I never knew the reason why. He just up and ran away. Found out years later that God had actually saved me from a teenage pregnancy by having him leave at age 14. Of course, I believed in God, but I was very angry at him and asking him, why did you let this happen? Why, if you're here, why did you let this happen? So there was a lot of anger towards God. And so after my brother left, I'm still drinking. I'm still feeling the guilt, the shame, the unworthiness, and I get involved with the occult. So much so that my girlfriend and I were best friends, and she had a pretty rough childhood as well. We decided to try the occult and did the Ouija board thing and ended up finding spirit guides. And these spirit guides had asked us to plan a suicide so that we could spend eternity with them. And we agreed. We had our notes written. We had the pills saved up. We had the date picked. We were going to commit suicide. I even had a research paper that was supposed to be due during that time. And I thought, well, I don't need to write this research paper because I'm not going to be around. So a week before our suicide pact, we went to a magic show. It was at a college in our town. And we watched the magic show. Being involved with the occult, of course, the magic show was very enticing. And at the end of the magic show, a young man came out, the magician, and said, what you've just seen is an illusion, but I want to tell you what's real. And he shared the gospel. And my girlfriend and I both accepted Jesus that evening. And went home, of course, tore up our notes and got rid of the pills and decided we weren't going to commit suicide. And I very quickly had to, of course, write a research paper. So that's kind of the funny story about it. I'm still not feeling the freedom. I'm still not feeling the release of the guilt and the pain and the unworthiness. But at least now I have someone I can talk to. I have Jesus. And I'm still, of course, drinking and doing things. And the Campus Crusade for Christ is the one that had done this magic show. And there were some ladies that came across and had Bible studies and worked with us. And that worked really well. And then they left. And so because I wasn't grounded in a church, I started searching for other ways to find Jesus. And I ended up getting involved in a cult. And the cult, you didn't read the Bible, you listened to what the elders said, and they even found someone for me to marry who sadly had a very interesting mental illness. And I stayed with him for 13 years. Not all of it was a good thing. I did try to get out, but of course, when you're in a cult, you can't leave your husband. And when you're in a cult, if you do leave, you lose all of your friends. So my husband at that time had mismanaged money, and so we had moved into a home where we had to rent a room. And the man that was running the house was a very good Christian and would spend many hours trying to convince me to leave the cult. And I was hesitant. And I also at that time worked at a drug rehab facility. I was the nurse there and was asked to teach a class just because the person that normally taught the class was missing. So I went to teach the class. It was on codependency. And as I'm teaching the class, I'm realizing that I need help. And that was where the lights went off. When I realized that I needed help, I began to see that I needed Jesus, that I needed to give up the alcohol, that I needed to serve him, and that I needed to give him my guilt and my shame and my unworthiness. And that was the light at the end of the tunnel. And from that point on, I left the cult. I ended up leaving my husband. But when I was free, then I wanted a healthy relationship. And I finally found a healthy relationship. But I want to encourage everyone. My story has a happy ending. I went to recovery. I got the healing that I needed. I got the freedom that I needed. I now feel worthy of God's love. And I am free of all of that. I still remember my past. I still go to recovery because you can always slip back into that. But I really encourage anyone that is being sexually abused to get help. I wished I had gotten help sooner, but I am so grateful that I did. And I need to tell you that my past is because I can now offer a future. I can help women. I volunteer at places that do anything with sexual abuse, sexual trafficking. I pray every day for healing for all the women who have suffered or who are suffering from sexual abuse. If you've been sexually abused or are being sexually abused, know that I've already prayed for you and I am praying for you. My past really is summed up in 2 Bible verses that I stand on. In Romans 5:28, we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. And the verse that I hold on to, Genesis 50:20, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. And that is my key verse, because what Satan meant as evil, using my stepbrother, using my parents, God has used for good and for the saving of many lives.